Reverend Reginald Jacson, the Executive Director of the Black Ministers Council, who's been at the forefront of the effort to reduce racism in this region, and Shai Goldstein, who is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Anti-Defamation League. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Reverend Jacson, we have talked in the past at length about racially motivated hate crime. Unfortunately, we need to talk about another one. What was your reaction to this latest incident?
Well, again, it was very troubling, very sad, but also it reminded us that indeed racism in this country has never died, and in fact it's troubling because it seems to be occurring more frequent and becoming much more open.
Why do you think it is in fact occurring more frequently as we head toward the new millennium?
For some reason or another, and I'm not sure exactly why, but there no longer seems to be the pretense to pretend that racism is gone away. Organizations and individuals are becoming more open, more blatant, and have no regard of acknowledging how they really feel. If you look at the young man in Chicago, he was very open and very forceful in his own regard and opinion as it relates to minorities. And even this morning on the Today Show, the leader of the church, which he was a member, said he fully supported his beliefs. It is very troubling because it's not only a matter of people's actions, but their beliefs which support those actions.
When you heard that this was a known racist who was accused of this shooting spree, how did that make you feel?
Troubled, and yet that's one of the prices you pay in a democracy. You cannot force people how to think or, in fact, how to act. That's one of the prices we pay. And yet, at the same time, I think it's very troubling because groups which espouse this kind of racism need to be made public. Unfortunately, now, we're only hearing about them when a tragedy like this occurs.
Shai, this individual did not limit his hate to race. He extended it to religion as well. Were you touched by this particular incident because individuals of the Jewish faith were affected as well?
Well, the Anti-Defamation League tracks hate groups regardless of who their target is. We've worked closely with Reverend Jacson on these and other issues involving hate crimes, and this church, this COTC, was a group where their primary motivation was anti-Semitism. They view Jews as, in essence, the devil incarnate, and they view African Americans and Asians and other people as racially impure, and also what they specifically indicated in this situation. As a matter of fact, their leader, Mr. Hale, indicated today and indicated yesterday that he had no remorse for these brutal murders because Jews and blacks and Asians and other mud people, as he phrased it, are no more valuable than vermin or insects, and therefore he can't have remorse for the death of vermin or insects any more than he can have remorse for the murder of African Americans, Jews, or Asians.
Unbelievable. Darnell, thank you for joining us. What did you think about this horrific crime?
Well, it's a real negative impact on America again. I feel that racism in and of itself, being that it's not just a black on white, white on black, there's racism within the black community also. Your light-skinned blacks as opposed to light-skinned cultural people. But I truly believe that racism is a taught hatred. If you take two children, black and white, and put them together and brought them up in a very Christian, well, just a religious background, I don't think you would have that hate feeling coming forward.
You raise an interesting point. This individual, 22 years old, comes from a very good home, a home where parents were present and active in his life. Do you think that hate is taught, or in his case, could it have been learned from exposure to this group?
I think that hatred is a disease, and sometimes it can manifest itself because it's passed down from the parents, yes. In other situations, though, it's a disease that can occur later in life. The seeds of it are by people like Mr. Hale, who allegedly are intelligent or have some form of intelligence but don't have any emotional intelligence. The leader of this group is a allegedly educated, intelligent man, and that's why it's very, very important that in these situations to stress emotional intelligence, and that's what we all need in these situations, in these crises.
Would you say that an educated leader of this type of group is even more dangerous than one who is uneducated?
That's what we saw from Hitler Germany, that these were filled by people with many degrees, doctorates. These are not necessary indicias of a good heart or of emotional intelligence. What's crucial in this situation with regard to this type of organization is that they do now need to be investigated by the FBI, by the Attorney General's office, and we've called for that investigation because this is not the first act that they've been involved in. This organization is an international organization that towards the end of apartheid in South Africa was recruiting South African policemen for dirty campaigns against the African National Congress. This is an organization that murdered an African-American veteran of the Persian Gulf War. So based on the string of incidents that have occurred, we think that the organization itself has to be investigated thoroughly.
We'll talk more about white supremacist groups, and we'd like to know what you think. Is this most recent hate crime an indication of how the whole country feels, or is it an isolated, tragic incident? You can let us know what you think by calling us during this break.
Beautiful park, ocean breezes, summer-long party, the thrill of thoroughbred racing. Your trip to the Jersey Shore isn't complete without a day at beautiful Monmouth Park Racetrack, the resort of racing. It's the place to be all summer long, with non-stop fun, exciting weekend events, and live thoroughbred racing. Come picnic in the shade and play for the day. You don't have to be a racing expert to enjoy a day at our park. Bring the kids. Every Sunday from noon to 4 p.m., rain or shine, is McDonald's Family Fun Day. Free pony rides, clowns, face painters, music, and more, courtesy of McDonald's. Or treat yourself to a relaxing day in our luxurious parterre suites. These private suites offer a panoramic view of the racing and the elegance of Monmouth Park. Located in scenic Oceanport, New Jersey, we're just a short trip down the parkway. Take exit 105 and follow signs to Monmouth Park. Monmouth Park Racetrack. Fast times at the Jersey Shore.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. All the leaves are
I'm Big Joe Henry.
and the sky is gray.
Big Joe Henry is one of the best.
He's a funny guy.
He makes me feel slim.
Take a fast train. Beep, 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 beep. Everybody's got serving USA.
We kind of have a job on Family Talk to make your family's life a little better. Maybe it's health information you can't get anywhere else. Maybe it's new insights on how to talk to your kids. Maybe it's little-known tips on finances that can save or make you a few dollars. Family Talk tries to make your life easier.
Thanks for joining us once again. We are discussing racism in America. Is it a serious problem in your opinion, or is it the result of the media blowing out of proportion certain events like the white supremacist killing in the Midwest this past weekend? Charisse, thank you for joining us. What do you think?
Hi.
Hello.
I think racism is a serious problem. I think for those who think it's not a serious problem is because it hasn't affected them and their community. And being though I am an Afro-American woman, I think I have two strikes against me in society because I am black and because I am a woman, that people tend to look at me different than what they may look at a white woman. And I think that's unfair. And I'm not shocked by what this young man has done at all. Because if you think about it, just recently a black man in Texas was dragged. It's like society hasn't changed one bit. It's like this has been going on for centuries.
So as an African American, are you afraid or concerned that this kind of incident is going to continue to happen?
Of course, very much. I'm afraid. I don't have any children right now. I'm afraid that one day it can happen to, I have a younger brother who's 8 years old. I don't know how it would affect him in the future, how his future is going to be, where his standpoint is going to be in life. is society going to look at him because he's a black male, that he's lesser than other males in society because he's black and they're white? I may have children. How society's going to look at them?
Good point. What would you say to Sharice to reassure her? Or can you say anything to reassure her?
Well, I think it's not so much a matter of reassuring as much as it is, this is the reality of the country in which we live. And in fact, I'd like to go back to one thing Shai said. I do think we need to be very sure how we define and say an educated person. Because one of the great failings, I think, in this country has been, in fact, the educational system. And if you look back, one of the big things, especially the minority community and the Jewish community, have argued is that, in fact, especially from elementary school up, education has not been impressed upon our children that, in fact, all of us are equal. If you stop, and I remember going back to school when I was a little boy, when integration came and we went to mixed schools, there was not the emphasis on teaching that all of us were equal, that all of us were made the same, but history was taught, and the emphasis was that blacks were considered inferior. Not that it was correct, but that's what in fact led to the Civil War and everything else, and there was no reinforcement that in fact we were equal.
And it's not just the text, it's the subtext that's been received by children generation after generation.
Is that something that can be changed? Or do we need generations to change it?
We need generations to change it, but it doesn't mean we should treat the problem of racism in a lackadaisical way. To the contrary, it has to be treated aggressively. There's almost a dialectic reasoning we have to engage in, a recognition that it's going to take time, but that doesn't mean we treat it unaggressively, just the opposite. Because it's going to take time, we have to be more aggressive. Brown v. Board of Ed was decided in 1954, and we're still not even at all deliberate speed. We're still dragging our heels in so many areas. And it's intolerable. What's particularly frightening, and one of the callers indicated it, and the Reverend and I have discussed it, is the increase in violence. We can have difference of opinions with regard to ideology, but these type of groups that are out there that are utilizing the internet, that have, I don't know what we would call them, they're frightening people, and they have certain technical skills, let's put it that way.
So they're getting their message off to a whole lot of people using the internet. Anthony, what do you think about all of this? Is it frightening, as Shai pointed out, that this violence continues to escalate? Anthony? John, it's your call.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I just asked Anthony a question about the violence escalating. Does it frighten you?
No, Lynn, I'll tell you something. I think that the government has to really get down and do something about this. First off, I think they should use RICO against all of these organizations. These organizations, there's hundreds of them out there, are interconnected through the internet. Since the death of George Lincoln Rockwell, who was the head of the American Nazi Party about 30 years ago, there's been a scramble for the top in the white supremacist movement. This is why you see all these small demagogues creating their small armies around them and then sending them out to hate and to kill. The other thing that I think that there's got to be also another divorced way of thinking here. All right, racism is part of their coin, but hatred is the dollar of their realm. They hate many different types of people, but as long as they can get us involved and bollocks down in the racist dialogue, then they're only keeping us in one corner of their lives.
So what's the answer, John? Should the white community get involved in this struggle as well?
The white community has to get involved in the struggle, and we've got to remember certain things. First off, Adolf Hitler came from a home that was not broken, and he was elected to office. And if he did it, they will do it. And that's a very important point. We look at Hitler as though he seized power. He didn't seize power. He was elected. They know this.
John, thank you very much. We always look forward to hearing your perspective. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to read for you some of the writings of the particular church that this white supremacist was involved in. So we want to warn you that it is somewhat disturbing. But when we come back, we'll talk more about it, and we'll ask whether or not white supremacist groups should be allowed to advocate their beliefs under the First Amendment, or whether that takes free speech too far. If you'd like to join us, call us during the break.
The tools of schools used to be chalkboards, pencils, and books. Well, now it's PCs, cable TV, and the internet. And today, kids are surfing the net faster than ever. Why? Because Comcast connects with kids. Comcast is offering free high-speed internet access to every school in our coverage area with Comcast at Home. So today's chalkboard is the World Wide Web. Because sometimes the best thing that can happen inside a classroom happens when you reach outside its walls.
Set your clock for good time.
And boogie! And the minute our eyes hit, I knew she was Gladys Knight and I was the Pips.
Call now and get in all the good times with Good Times, now on home video.
I rated D for dang old man.
Stop that nonsense before something falls off.
Pour me a cup of coffee and make it like I like my man. Hot, black, and strong.
Good Times, the Collector's Edition. Own 4 of the funniest episodes ever for just $4.95 plus shipping and handling.
I'm an Orange Piece. What I know algebra for anyway? What am I, an Algerian?
So set your clock for Good Times on home video. Operators are standing by.
To get your first 4-episode video of Good Times, the Collector's Edition, for only $4.95 plus shipping, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-825-6161. That's 1-800-825-6161.
Experience the cable internet revolution with Comcast at Home. It's 100 times faster than a 28.8 modem and doesn't need a phone line. Now, Comcast at Home revolutionizes the internet for your family. New customers get 1 free year of SurfWatch, America's leading content filtering software. SurfWatch blocks sites you don't want and keeps your kids in safe areas of the net. Call now for Comcast at Home. Get a year of SurfWatch, a $60 value free. The best of the internet with peace of mind. Call 1-800-850-5357.
We are back. Angela, thank you for your patience. It's your call on racism in America. Is it a problem? Angela? All right. If you'd like to join in our conversation, you can do so by calling us anytime. We are talking about racism in America, specifically because of the event that happened over the 4th of July weekend, where a white supremacist went on a rampage, literally killing 2 individuals based entirely on their race and wounding 7 others. Let's talk about this individual. His name was Benjamin Smith. He was 22 years old. And Reverend Jackson, he was a follower of the World Church of the Creator, although the organization says he left that church in May for failure to pay dues. Are you offended that a racist organization would call itself a church?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the ironies that you find with a lot of racist thinking and attitudes and behavior. It's far too often couched under the cloak of being religious.
Shai, give me your impression of what this particular church tried to teach.
What this organization tried to teach and did teach was a virulent form of anti-Semitism, racism, and bigotry that said that only people of pure white blood have any rights to exist on the earth. Everybody else is animal, vermin, insects that need to be destroyed. This is the same ideology as Hitler and others, and it must be totally rejected by every American that believes in democracy. But we can't have a sense of self-righteousness. It's easy to attack a group like this, and I think all Americans would. What's crucial is not only marginalizing and attacking hate groups like this, but on a day-to-day basis, as the Reverend does, is attacking all forms of racism, racist policies, bigoted policies. We can't have swastikas carved in cornfields. We can't have crosses burned as we did in Cumberland County in April of 1998. And prior to this incident, this organization is being investigated in connection with leaflets that were distributed at a synagogue that was burned in Sacramento, California 2 weeks ago. Along with 2 other synagogues. So we have some serious issues that we have to face on a macro basis, but the most important thing for all of us to do every day is whenever we hear a bigoted comment, whenever we hear a racist comment, a sexist comment, a homophobic comment, is to confront the person that makes it. Every individual can do that, and if you're not doing that, if you're not making that your daily responsibility, then you're contributing to this type of situation.
Brian, it's your call. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's your responsibility to change racism in America?
Absolutely, at the fundamental level, though, and it starts in homes. I think what Mr. Smith did was definitely, he went way beyond the borders of what is legal or morally right. However, I got to see his preempted interview, and what struck me was he mentioned that the reason there was so much violence in this country was because of minorities, and he's pointing the finger at other people. But on the same hand, he used violence for a way to his end, to get his point across, and that was his I don't know, I just don't understand how somebody could talk to rhetoric, pointing the finger at someone else, but then do the very same thing that he accuses another group of. And what bothers me most quickly is I'm afraid that his thoughts may be the tip of the iceberg, where maybe it's a microcosm for a larger than you may think portion of the population who may, although they won't go to his extent, they may think along the lines of this guy.
Well, that's just what's so surprising, Brian, and thank you for pointing it out, that very few of us on the East Coast may have been familiar with this World Church of the Creator and its white supremacist views, but we're certainly aware of it now, and it's startling to realize that there could be fragments of that population right in our own region.
Well, I'll tell you, what's even more troubling, though, is not so much the fact of this church, but I think it is what Brian said, the fact that there may be millions of folk all across this country who may not go to this extent in terms of being violent, but whose thoughts and whose feelings are the same. And again, racism, I believe, is the #1 domestic problem facing this nation.
Shai said something interesting during the break, that just because someone would not commit a murder doesn't mean he or she is not racist.
Well, I'll be very frank with you, until white America begins to move from saying that's bad, that's sad, we feel so awful that happened, and again begins to tackle and confront racism, it will not go away.
Do you believe that we can put an end to racism?
I think it's going to take quite some time. I think what this indicates is that, re-emphasizes, is that there are serious problems that we face in America, that yes, racism, bigotry, hatred are among the most serious problems, and are the problems that can destabilize any democracy, can destabilize any country. We've seen that in the Balkans. We've seen that in American history too from time to time. If we don't make it our individual responsibility, corporate responsibility, government, communities, synagogues, churches, mosques, all houses of worship, if they don't take it upon themselves to reach out, then we're going to be in serious trouble.
The good news is we have people like you working every day to make sure that this comes to an end, and we appreciate your time. Shai Goldstein, nice to have you back with us.
Well, it's a pleasure being with Reverend Jacson. We have an ongoing battle with regard to racial profiling, and one of the advantages to this type of work is that you get to work with people and to meet journalists like yourself that care so much about these issues.
Thank you. We need to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk about racism right here in the community in which we live. Is the state where you live advocating racism through racial profiling, or are race relations great where you live? It's your call on that and much more when we return. If you're on the line, please stay with us. Your calls are next.